it's basically being an activist who is jacked on a vegan diet, because I think it speaks louder sometimes than words that just look the part. I want them to be like, oh, what's the secret of that? And if I say, well, I'm actually on a vegan diet, they're like, oh, it might make them think.
Hey everyone, this is Ryan from Ethics Fitness, and this is Season 3 of the Ethics Approach podcast, the podcast where we highlight incredible vegan athletes, nutritionists, and other influential and inspiring vegans in the community and find out what they do to absolutely kill it on a plant-based diet. If you haven't already, please give us a follow anywhere you're listening to this, and feel free to check out the other content I'm producing on ethicsfitness.com, including the ethics coaching services, merch, articles, free training programs, and YouTube videos. Also, feel free to check out my personal fitness Instagram at TofuStrong for more podcast updates and additional content. Creating content like this is a huge passion of mine, and I greatly appreciate any support along those lines. All of my links will be in the description, and thank you so incredibly much for all of the continued love and support. In this continuation of our conversation with natural vegan bodybuilder Joe Vijay, we delve even deeper into the nuanced world of bodybuilding, veganism, and ethics. This episode picks up from where we left off, exploring Joe's recent competitive season as a vegan bodybuilder, and then diving into our opinions on enhanced bodybuilding and steroid use as a vegan. Could there one day be a vegan Mr. Olympia? We examine the ethics and legality of steroids in the sport and the unique challenges Joe faces as a natural vegan athlete navigating this landscape. Joe shares his experiences of how people react to his vegan lifestyle, including some surprising responses to his vegan-themed gym attire. We also touch on Joe's personal approach to vegan activism, shedding light on different strategies for inspiring change. The conversation takes a thoughtful turn as we discuss societal health trends, the potential of lab-grown meat to accelerate veganism, and the reasons why more people haven't embraced plant-based living yet. Joe also unpacks the health aspects of veganism, from bloodwork to maintaining peak fitness on a plant-based diet. If you've ever wondered about what it takes to prep for a bodybuilding competition as a vegan, Joe breaks it all down, manipulating food, cardio, and training to achieve peak conditioning. We discuss the role genetics and metabolism play in bodybuilding, the impact of extreme leanness on overall health, and how NEET, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, changes during prep. Finally, we explore the importance of having a supportive partner during such an intense journey and how relationships can play a crucial role in achieving competitive goals. This episode is packed with eye-opening discussions and actionable advice, whether you're an aspiring bodybuilder, vegan advocate, or someone looking to better understand the connections between ethics and fitness. Without further ado, let's dive back in with the inspiring Joe Vijay. All right, what's up, guys? This is Ryan with the Ethics Approach podcast, joined today again by the homie here, Joe Vijay. Joe, thanks again for coming on, man. We didn't really quite get to finish the last episode. I feel like both of us just kept talking about like lifting and bodybuilding more than anything else. So I'm stoked to have you back on again, man. How you doing?
Yeah, good. It's too easy to get stuck into two passions that cross over, because I know we wanted to talk about veganism, but we didn't quite get talked so much about that, touched on it, but not enough. But yeah, bodybuilding, I can't be quiet about it. I just keep talking. But yeah, so yeah, it's something I'd love to continue, and hopefully, like you said, we get to talk a bit more about veganism. But yeah, just a reminder for anybody who didn't catch the last one. Yeah, my name is Joe. I'm a natural vegan bodybuilder. Recently just wrapped up a competitive season, so I've just done a few shows. I think I did 5 this year. I have to think then. They all went reasonably well. I placed top 3 in all but one. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the season. Managed to prove that being a vegan, especially in the natural bodybuilding world, was of no hindrance or no disadvantage to basically being competitive. I won one of my shows. For the first show I did, I managed to come first. The second show I did was a lineup of about 19 guys. I managed to come third in that one, which was great. I was really pleased with that, because that lineup was probably the one that made me the most nervous, because just being in the pump up room and seeing like that many people competing, I'm thinking, oh God, I don't know if I'm going to stand out here. And then when you get that third, even if it wasn't first, I came third. To know that you stood out amongst that many men, and yeah, it was the open class as well, so it was the men's physique open, which was like the big boys. Being a vegan, people think you're going to be the smaller guy, and that was far from the truth that day. I mean, that day I wasn't the biggest, but on most of the stages I've stepped on, I'm usually one of the bigger guys, and it's been quite a good thing to prove for veganism. Something I've wanted to do for a long time. Um,
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah, and then like the show after that, I took second, and then the show after that, I took third again. So, and then I also did one classic bodybuilding show, which I didn't really prep properly for in terms of recovery, because I basically what I had done is I'd done a men's physique show the day before where I'd come second, and then I
Mm.
had to somehow get myself physically ready to go again the next day because it was the
Hmm.
day after. My body was a bit tired, and I was holding a little bit of water in the legs and in the lower back, and I was pretty sore from pumping up,
Yeah.
which it hindered the look quite a bit. But I had a lot of fun that day, so I did classic bodybuilding that day. And even on that stage, I might not have been the leanest guy, but I was still one of the bigger guys, which was pleasing, to be able to do that for veganism. So, yeah, I feel like that was just the small aspect from last conversation. I didn't really get to cover my placings. I just thought it'd be nice
Hmm.
to just, just discuss that, because I think for veganism, it's quite a big thing. I've,
Hmm.
I've, I run a very small YouTube channel, and one of the funny comments I've had, I don't get many comments, but one of the funny ones we had was, you don't see a vegan Mr. Olympia out there. And of course, you're not going to see a vegan Mr. Olympia out there unless you find a vegan that is so driven and wants to do everything it takes to go to the Olympia. There's just not many vegans that want that. That's the reason
Yeah.
that's the case.
And the
But one thing I can
genetics.
do, and the genetics, yeah, it's playing the odds, isn't it, of finding that person with the genetics and just happens to be vegan, who wants to do
Yeah.
it, you know? Phil Heath, put him on a vegan diet, he would have still been Mr. Olympia, I can promise you that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But at least for natural bodybuilding, that's what I could do, is I could do it myself. I'm not willing to do the steroids to go to the Olympia. Um, who knows? Maybe in 5 years' time, I might change my mind on that just to prove a
Hmm.
point. But right now, I don't care enough. I enjoy natural bodybuilding, and I think that speaks louder for veganism because it's all about nutrition at that point, and
Yeah.
the vegan nutrition is questioned a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah,
A lot of vegans are also pretty health conscious too, right? So I feel like even more so, that's trying to find a needle in a haystack for a vegan who's also willing to pump themselves full of whatever they possibly need to reach that top level, right?
100%. Yeah, I don't think a lot of vegans don't even want to do that to themselves because they say
Yeah.
even natural bodybuilding is not healthy, but when you take it to that next level and you go enhanced, you're playing with your hormones as well at that point, and other things as well. You're even playing with your bone structure to a degree with growth hormone, and it's quite a scary
Hmm.
thing to think about. Like, yeah, for me right now, I wouldn't even want to dabble with that. I wouldn't want to play
Hmm.
with it.
But we do have some enhanced bodybuilders out there, and I think my personal opinion is I actually think that's pretty cool because, yeah, like a lot of vegans are very health conscious, and I feel like there is a big pushback in certain communities, certain vegan communities, against like PEDs, like they're very anti PEDs. My opinion is like, I mean, if we have more people demonstrating what's possible in the enhanced route, in the natural route, whatever, I think it's like different strokes for different folks, right? Like you see like this super enhanced dude, like this jacked behemoth monster. Maybe that'll appeal to somebody when they find out that he's vegan. Like maybe that could open a door for somebody and be like, wow, maybe I should think about that. Like that, maybe that's an option.
I 100% agree. I think when it comes to bodybuilding and veganism crossing over, any bodybuilders that go vegan don't necessarily go vegan because they think it's going to make them a better bodybuilder. They go vegan
Hmm.
because they want to stop exploiting animals. And if you can let somebody know that they can still, do all the drugs and things they need to do and follow the vegan diet to get to where they want on the stage, that's a
Huh.
good thing. That's a good thing. And like I said, I've got nothing, like you said, I've got nothing against steroids. Like I said,
Hmm.
in 5, 10 years' time, I can't promise you that I won't do it to prove a
Huh.
point and try and go to the Olympia. Right now, it's not where my head's at, but I
Yeah.
don't think there's anything wrong with it. Is you're risking your own health. That's the only thing. Um, that that to a lot of people is not worth it, and right now, to me, it's not worth it. But who knows? Maybe five
Yeah.
years, 10 years, I might think, you know what? Well, I think it would have to be 5 years because I think there is a such thing as getting a bit too old. And
Yeah.
you want to
Yeah.
play the age game. So probably five
Exactly.
years if I decide let's do it. It might not be
Yeah.
too late to try and go to the Olympia and do men's physique or something as a vegan because, like you say, you've got different ranks. You've got natural bodybuilding and you've still got enhanced, and people want to know that they can go vegan and the enhanced route to go to the Olympia. And the more of us that do it, you make it more normal. So, like you said, it's not a bad thing. People are doing steroids anyway.
Yeah, yeah. That's very true. I know we have like some dudes like John Thomas, who's like the bodybuilding vegan, who like is very open and honest about his gear usage, and I think that's great. It's like, but then again, like back to my point from earlier, I'll see him post some stuff on like Reddit, for instance, like vegan fitness subreddit, and everyone will just call him out and be like, "Oh yeah, well you're only that jacked because you're on gear," and it's like, dude, why are you trying to bring down like other vegans? Like we're already like 1% of the population. Like I don't know. My opinion is like, dude, just accept that. I mean, it is a big part of bodybuilding. I mean, obviously, if you're enhanced, you're going to be doing gear. So why not just, in my opinion, just boost them up and be like, yeah, that's cool, man. You know, like good for you. Like I don't know.
Exactly.
I'm very open-minded though. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we're on the same wavelength when it comes to that. I mean, ethically, what is wrong with doing steroids? The vegans are vegans because we're ethical, right? It's an ethical choice. There's nothing
Agreed.
not ethical about doing steroids. So, like, if someone wants to do that and make veganism look good, let them. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a different look. If someone goes to the Olympia, right? It's going to sound really weird, but like, I've forgotten that guy's name, but I've seen him on Instagram. I just know him as the bodybuilding vegan, so I do follow him as well. But let's say one day he was Mr. Olympia. All the vegans are going to say, oh, yeah, well, the Mr. Olympia is a vegan. And then suddenly they won't care that he's on steroids. But because he's not there yet, or, you know, let's say he was on his way. I don't think he is, because I don't think he cares enough to go that far. He does it for his, I don't know why he does it. Maybe it's just because he enjoys it. But let's say he was actually on his journey to trying to become Mr. Olympia. And then whilst he's on the journey, all the vegans aren't supporting. That doesn't look good. And then if at the end when he becomes vegan, suddenly everyone's on his side, it's like he'll remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's not okay.
That's a good point. What do you think about the ethics of enhanced bodybuilding on a vegan diet, like a plant-based diet? Do you think it's still ethical?
If there's transparency, yeah. I wouldn't want people to kind of take steroids and then say that, then like hide the fact that they do it and then say they look the way they look because of the vegan diet, because that's an ethical thing there, isn't it? There's a bit of an issue there because it's like
I agree.
not lying, but it's hiding a truth.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's not really fair in that sense, because then someone who's just a little bit gullible, they might go vegan thinking they're going to look like this guy on steroids, and actually that's never going to happen without steroids. So in terms of that, that's when there's an ethical dilemma. But if they're transparent about it, or at least, I know a lot of people can't talk about steroids because there might be laws. In America, it's illegal, isn't it, to do them basically. Like in the UK, it's not actually illegal.
I don't think it's actually legal here. Yeah, I don't think it's actually legal here, but like it's weird. I feel like no one really. I feel like cops like wouldn't really care unless like they blatantly busted you for something else. Then like you had all this stuff on you. You don't really hear about it though. I don't know. It seems like it's less. It's less like it's demonized here, maybe than it used to be. Except for in sports. In sports, it's still like very looked down upon, like the Olympics. Even though like I think that opens up a whole other conversation of like, you know, how clean is the Olympics really? I'd question that.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows?
Yeah.
I think as well. I think you're right, because if they really cared, all the police have to do is find all the IFBB pros and be like, we're going to have you under arrest just because you're blatantly on them, and they could easily go and prove it.
Yeah, but you know what's funny?
They don't,
like,
because they don't care.
Yeah, Ronnie Coleman was a cop, right? Like, there's a lot of cops that are on gear, I bet.
Yeah.
That's interesting in and of itself. But back to the point about so like I think from what I understand, a lot of gear is actually vegan. Like I've heard several times, like, you know, obviously, like, I'm not going to be the best person to talk about this because I've never done any, but from what I understand, like, testosterone is derived from yams or soy, which is really interesting because a lot of people will say that soy is feminizing. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
And I think, like, all other steroids are just synthesized in a lab from other, you know, like, plant-based sources. So I think when you get down to it, like, it seems like it's a technically vegan thing. It just goes more back to, like, the whole health side of it, which I think is why a lot of vegans like frown upon it still, and obviously like people in general don't really want to play with their health like that, and I respect that for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of vegans just want to make sure we don't get more ex-vegans as well, and they probably worry as well. This is speculation. They might worry that people doing steroids on a vegan diet, for some reason, their health might decline, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I need to eat meat again to fix it." You never know. People come up with all sorts of like weird theories.
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's an ethical thing with people doing steroids and being vegan. I don't think there's a crossover to say like, oh, if you're vegan, you can't do steroids because suddenly it's not ethical anymore. It's like you're playing with
agreed.
your health. That's all you're
Yeah,
doing. You're not harming anybody. You're not exploiting an animal. So I don't really see the issue.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
agree.
unless somehow you could prove animals are being exploited in order to synthesize the gear you're using. But I'm like you. I haven't looked into it enough because I've just not cared enough because I don't do juice.
Right.
So I haven't needed to know whether it's ethical to do it. So it's an interesting conversation now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. So what about like when you were in doing your competitions and stuff, or even just training in the gym? When people find out that you are vegan, what do they have to say? Like, do they say anything? Or are they kind of just like, oh, cool? What's the reaction there?
Yeah, I think people are shocked initially, but then I have had a few people say, "Well, obviously you're doing some juice then." Like, and that's the usual first assumption because they just think it's not possible to get so big just on plant-based diet.
Definitely a
Um,
thing. Yeah.
or or they will just question the hell out of you on where do you get your protein from then, like the usual.
Hmm.
But they'll ask you everything you're eating, and they want you to give your diet plan so that they can understand how you did it. They don't want to do it
Yeah.
themselves, but they just want to know that you're being truthful, I guess.
Uh-huh.
It's a little frustrating because it's like you feel like you have to like suddenly get your diary out with your meal plans and everything to
Hmm.
prove it. It's a little funny in that way, but I also don't
Hmm.
mind it because you can also use that as an excuse to educate people there and then on
Yeah.
on the other protein sources that they could be considering instead of meat. You know,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
they'll go home that day and be like, "Bloody hell, that guy's that big and that's what he eats. Maybe that's
Hmm.
his secret." Do you know what I mean? So you could like I also try to be quite enthusiastic when I talk about it.
Hmm.
I always try to be happy, even if
Hmm.
I'm not in like the mood to talk about it. Because you're not always. I'm only human. Sometimes I'm there to just train
Oh yeah.
and I want to just smash my workout, and then you've got to stop and like talk about your diet. And right now, I
Hmm.
don't want to talk about my diet, but because I know in that moment, right, this is an opportunity to, push veganism out there without me bringing up veganism. Because how do you know if someone's a vegan? They'll tell you. I only do that when someone asks me. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I try to be like that. I try to use any excuse to talk about veganism when the time is right, because that's when the message will be well received. Even in the
Hmm.
office when I'm working, same thing. If someone asks me something, I'm like, well, you brought it up, so here you go. Here's the information.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, if in the gym, if somebody asks me about like what I eat and they find out I'm a vegan, generally it's yeah, they just want to know where you get your protein from, like instantly. That's the
That's
main
the biggest
question.
question. Hmm.
Yeah,
Do you wear any vegan shirts or anything to the gym ever?
I try to. Yeah, I don't really
Yeah.
have too much
Me
vegan
neither.
t-shirts. I've literally got a vegan vest and a t-shirt from Vegan Muscle.
Yeah.
Um, I am I am kind of in the process of making my own thing,
Right.
which
Right.
yeah, it's in progress, but I haven't really done too much. But I've got an idea.
Do you
But yeah,
want
I
to do
want
you
to
want to
start
shout that out
representing
here
a bit
for a
more.
second? I know you mentioned a little
No,
bit
not
last.
not
Not
yet,
yet.
not
Okay.
yet,
All right.
because
Okay.
there's nowhere to get it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not selling anything yet, so I think I'd rather wait till everything's up and running. But I'm quite keen to get it on the road. Like I've already got the designs done for like the majority. I've got like just basically a logo ready, and I really like it. Like I'm buzzed for it. I can't wait to bring it to the market. But yeah, it's just timing and I had a lot going on with the prep and stuff, change of job, so I haven't really been able to focus on it. But I have not forgotten about it. And once I bring this out, I'm going to print so much so that I can keep wearing to the gym. So I want to get to the point where I only wear vegan apparel to the gym because I always want to push that message out there in the way I can do it. Um, and the way I do it is with my physique. That's the best thing I can do. I can talk, but I'm not the best talker. And I'm not the best when it comes to the science, of like the nutrition side better. I mean, don't
Hmm.
get me wrong, I also want to do, I've got a vegan nutrition course purchase, which I need to do. I just haven't done it because I want to be able to talk about it and help people where I can,
Yeah.
without pretending I know what I'm talking about. I want to know that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
And I think
100%.
when it comes to talking about nutrition, it's quite a serious thing. You can't just tell someone, eat this, you'll be fine. You should be able to back that up, prove that you know what
Hmm.
you're on about.
Hmm.
But yeah, back to the point at hand. I need more vegan clothing right now. Because yeah, any excuse to get that vegan message out there in the gym,
Yeah.
I'll take it. And yeah, clothing is probably one of the easiest things you can do to spark conversation in the gym.
It really is. Yeah, I'm with you. I actually don't have that many vegan shirts or anything, and I don't really. I guess my main reason is because I think a lot of times you kind of touched on this, but I think I'm kind of there to work out, and I think that like the idea of someone coming up to me and talking to me about it while I'm in the gym, especially, is probably the one time that I particularly don't really want to talk about it because I'm like
Mm,
in the mood to work out, like in the zone, and but I
yeah.
understand like there is like that's probably the best time to wear a vegan shirt, right?
Yeah. And unless you, what you could do is like pick the workout that, I was gonna say the workout doesn't mean much to you, but every workout means something to me. Like they're equal. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Like
But I'm in agreement. Sorry.
deadlifts especially, like I was gonna say, like, coming up in between a set when you're getting really pumped up for a deadlift, it's like, dude, I
Yeah, you
mean,
don't need that.
yeah, it's like I like to talk about it and stuff to people who are actually open to talking about it, but there's a certain time when I'm like, oh man, like that kind of threw me off. I just waited 10 minutes in between sets and now I'm like cold, you know.
Yeah. Has that actually happened to you? 'Cause it's happened to me.
um I think something similar has happened, but not just like some random dude in the gym will just come up and start talking about whatever.
So we've got basically me and my brother, because I'm training my brother for a while, but we used to train together all the time. And
Uh-huh.
there were days where we'd both wear the same vegan t-shirt on purpose, mine.
Hmm.
Just because we like to be those two vegan brothers. That's what we are on YouTube,
Yeah.
and it's kind of the way we present ourselves as like a little bit of like, a two for one thing.
Yeah, and it's
Like we're
awesome.
the. Proof that there's two of us to do it.
Yeah.
So it's not just like a coincidence that Joe's got big. No, David, my brother, has also got big, and we're
Hmm.
pretty similar size. So it looks pretty cool when we wear the same thing. A lot of the time we look like the same person from behind.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was one time. So we used to train at TBJPX Shed, which is owned by James Hollingshead and JP,
Hmm.
Jordan Peters, if you know who they are. Um, so their gym is there's quite high traffic on the weekends. So
Hmm.
you get all sorts of people come through. But I had one guy talk to me just as I'm warming up for leg day. Leg day is like a sacred day for me, man. It's like if I had to say I have a favorite day, it's legs, man. Like I don't
Yeah.
care what anyone says. Like it used to be, but now it really is. I think it's because I've got so much work to do on them. So I'm
Uh-huh.
really like when I'm warming up, I'm like not I wouldn't say I'm meditating, but like I'm like going through in my head like what my sets are going to be like, what weights I'm going to do, how is it going to feel if I feel like this,
Hmm.
how do I approach a set, do I do more reps, do I drop the set, do you know what I mean? I'm thinking everything through, what exactly
Yeah.
what I want to do. And then someone goes, "Oh, you two are vegan then, are you?" And we're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And you think they'd just, "Oh yeah, wow, that's cool, isn't it?" And blah blah blah. And then it would end. But this guy wouldn't leave me alone. He was following me around like what I end up doing when I warm up for legs is I go around like the adductor machine, the abductor, then I do leg extensions, hamstrings. I just literally I go do a light set of everything. But he was kind of hovering, and I couldn't like, and I had to get to the point where I was like, anyway, look, I'm gonna get on now. But I had to actually say it. But I felt bad because he was
Yeah.
asking me stuff about plant-based diets, and he was actually saying to me how he tried it and he wants to keep doing it, and he wants to give it another go because he failed the first time. And I was trying to help him, but also get on with it as well.
Yeah.
But it was quite hard to like redirect the conversation away from veganism, and I felt bad to do that. But at the same
Hmm.
time, it's a weird one. It's like I can't really have my workout hindered too much because that is how I represent veganism is through my physique. And if my workouts get interrupted, I I'm the kind of person to overthink now. But that's going to affect the quality of my physique. And my physique is my image for veganism.
Hmm.
But then you've got to find that balance. If someone wants to talk to you in the gym, you need to be able to talk to them and to help them as well. So it's kind of hard to find that like equilibrium between, you
Yeah.
know, still creating that good physique, still having really quality sessions. But then if somebody does talk to you in the gym, how do you handle it to, you know, in the end, I tried to just redirect it. It probably sounded really snobby, but I was like, oh, if you
Hmm.
really want more information, just follow me on Instagram and message me. That's what kind of how I ended it.
Hmm.
he didn't follow me on Instagram and he didn't message me. Do you know what I mean? So then I was like, well,
Yeah,
did he
yeah.
really care,
Yep.
or is it did I come across rude? I didn't know, but I also at that point I was like, I don't care because I want to get on with my
Yeah.
workout. But then
Yeah,
I
I'm
felt
sure you
bad for
didn't.
veganism.
I know what you mean. I'm sure you didn't come off as rude. It's just like sometimes people just don't really get a hint. And what can you do? I mean, you talked to him for like 10 minutes, right? I mean, it's
Mm. Hmm.
you can't really spend your whole, if somebody was doing that to me, I would have done the same thing, man. I've been like, yo, dude, like, I got to get on with this workout. I got to do stuff later. But glad we talked for a little bit. Yeah, like reach out to me on Instagram. We could talk
Yeah,
more there.
it's pretty much what I.
Yeah, nothing
Yeah, and
wrong with that,
I'm
dude.
glad you agree that that approach wasn't too bad because at the time, like, I sometimes think that situation in my head, like, still to this day, like, how did I really handle that right? Did I put that guy off by not being friendly enough? You
Yeah.
know, like I was definitely friendly, but could I have done more? The hell, but yeah, it's an
It's
interesting one.
definitely a thing too, where it's like, if you're representing veganism, like you're wearing a vegan shirt, like you kind of feel obligated also to be like an extra good example. So, you don't want to be an asshole, right? So that makes sense too. Like you're maybe a little bit more in your head about it too. Like he knew you're a vegan. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's the exact same thing I said to my brother after he went. I said we kind of brought that on ourselves. They're like, we
Yeah.
can't even moan about what just happened because yeah, we had the t-shirt. So what do we expect? We're in a high traffic gym where a lot of people, because
Yeah.
it was the weekend as well, lots of people would travel to go to that gym on the weekends. It's one of those
Hmm.
gyms that is that popular. So we
Hmm.
knew what we were getting ourselves into.
Yeah. What's your thought about like why some people think that there's a stereotype about vegans being skinny? Like, do you think it's true, or do you think it's been getting better recently?
I think it is true, but I think it's only because most vegan activists don't lift because they don't have the
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
I think they're too busy doing activism that they're on the road all the time, and they travel up and down the country to be at the different meets
Hmm.
with other vegan activists, and they don't, and usually they are the people that the general public think of when they think of vegans. They think of vegan activists who are on the streets talking to people. They don't think of people like myself and yourself who are just, just people who aren't so active, but we have a different way of, preaching veganism, if you want to call it that.
Hmm.
We kind of do it a bit more casually, which I know a lot of vegans will probably say we don't do enough. That
Uh-huh.
I've had that kind of hinted at me quite a lot,
Hmm.
that I could be doing a lot more for veganism, but actually I disagree.
Yeah,
I think
I agree with you.
if I was doing what these vegan activists were doing, I wouldn't look the way I look. And
Hmm.
I would say these vegan activists wouldn't be able to reference people like myself as examples of vegan bodybuilders that,
Hmm.
are walking the walk. Like they need
Yeah.
examples like us to be able to convince the general public that you don't need meat for protein.
Hmm.
And for me to look the way I do, I need to be pretty intense with my regime. I need to be on it. I
Hmm.
need to be in my little bubble of
Hmm.
routine. I can't be going up and down the country doing activism meets. I can't do it. Like it would
Yeah.
interrupt too much. I wouldn't be able to get the same quality out of my workouts. I wouldn't be able to have the same quality in my nutrition day in, day out.
Hmm.
Rest and recovery as well. Like you'd be
Hmm.
tired. I can go to things every now and then. Don't get me wrong. I'm not excusing myself from everything going on.
Hmm.
Eat for example, vegan camp out. I'll go to that. It's not an activism thing, but it's a good thing for me to go to meet other vegans and give other vegans like inspiration that they can look this way if they want.
Yeah.
Opportunity for people to talk to me as well. Cut my
Hmm.
ear off because that's the perfect time. We were saying in the gym, we ain't got time for it. Catch me at the camp out. I'll chat
Hmm.
your ear off about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
If you don't
and
mind, I'd like to add on to that for a second. There's a book Robert Cheek wrote. He's like for anyone who doesn't know, he's like a vegan bodybuilder from years ago. Honestly, he was like one of the first vegan natural bodybuilders I ever heard of. He wrote a book called The Impactful Vegan. He talks a lot about successful activism, and what he actually says is a lot of like marches and protests and such actually are hurting veganism's growth because most people, if you just think about it rationally, when you're aggressively approached and told not to do something and that you're a bad person for doing this and such, it makes you even more like convicted to not change because you're like, oh, these people are assholes, like fuck them. But like that's why I totally agree with you, obviously, because I think the approach of being like, leading by example, being like, hey, look at me, I'm like healthy, I'm fit, all this, have people come to you and be like asking you genuine questions and maybe getting genuinely interested is the best way to change. Because I genuinely believe that people don't change unless they actually want to. There's some people who are like a little different, who maybe if they're guilted into something, they'll be a little more open to it. But I think most people, they just get pissed. And that's why I totally agree with your approach also. Like, I think that is actually, I would argue it's the most effective way.
Well, it's why like my YouTube name with my brother, my joint Instagram, my brother's called Vegan Jactivist. That's what it means. It's our like made up like slang for it, but it's basically being an activist who is jacked on a vegan diet. Just that's what it is. It's as simple as that. Because I think it speaks louder sometimes than words to just look the part.
Yeah,
If someone
agreed.
likes the way you look physically, they're like, "What is that guy doing? I want some of that." That's what I want people to think when they look at me. I think I want them to be like, "Oh, what's the secret then?" And if I say, "Well, I'm actually on a vegan diet," they're like, "Oh," it might make them think.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying it's the secret. It's not. I could look the same way eating meat, but
Uh-huh.
my point is that the biggest argument to, like you said, to not go vegan is, well, you can't. Most vegans are skinny, and I don't want to
Hmm.
be that. I would like
Hmm.
to be the contradiction to that, or the juxtaposition, whatever the word
Yeah.
is. But
I
yeah,
think
so
people's
and
idea of like what skinny is too is actually skewed, because I think we as a whole planet, like a species, should probably be thinner than we are at this
yeah,
point.
yeah, and even being the size I'm at, I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's healthy. I think there is such thing as, even as a natural, having too much muscle. There is.
Yeah, I
It
could
makes
agree
you
with that. Yeah.
unnecessarily heavy, and your heart works harder to hold that much mass. Like, you don't need
Uh-huh.
to have this much muscle. It's pointless. There's nothing
It kind of
practical
is.
about it.
I do think your body does it seems naturally, at least it probably does a pretty good job regulating it to a degree, but I agree, like the heavier you are, the harder your heart has to work, the more you got to eat to sustain it. Probably not the most healthy thing ever, especially when they're showing that like calorie restriction seems to extend your lifespan, right? Like,
And I think like no matter how much muscle you have, so okay, you can eat more food and get away with it, but your digestive system does still have to process it and work
yeah.
harder than someone else's. You
Yeah.
might need the food, but your digestive system is being stressed out by all that food just to
Yeah.
maintain muscle mass that is essentially pretty pointless.
Mhm.
I'll admit that I'm not stupid to it, but I can't help it. I enjoy the game.
It
I
looks
love
cool.
bodybuilding anyway. But
Yeah,
I know the
man.
risk.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, it definitely looks cool though. That's why we do it.
It does. I tell you what, the leaner I got this year, I remember saying to my brother, I had when my doubts started to split, and I remember just flexing my tricep in the mirror. I said, for the first time in my life, I look a little bit like an anime character, and like, who doesn't want to look like that?
Dude,
And
that's
to do
that's
that as a
kind of what
vegan
it's
speaks quite loudly.
Yeah, man, that's kind of what the deep recesses of my mind. That's kind of what got me into lifting, dude. Like Dragon Ball Z and stuff.
Mm. So
I
if
was
you
just
can
like,
do that as a vegan, God, it speaks
yeah,
loud, doesn't
yeah, for
it?
sure, for sure, man. What would you so like for your average person, why do you think they're so I guess like almost like why are they not actually going vegan? Like, what do you think? Why are the numbers higher at this point, from your general opinion? Like, it seems like it's like obviously we're all like, most of us are born into eating like animal products and such, but I'm curious what you think about like why is veganism such a small percentage of the population still, even though like there's so much evidence showing that it's more ethical. Obviously it's better for the environment, and it could be done very, very healthily. Like, why do you think people are so against it?
Think two reasons. I think the main reason is people just can't let go of tradition.
Mm-hmm.
So many of our traditions just revolve around eating meat. The big one, obviously, being Christmas. We've got a divide in our family at the moment. So in our family, actually, we've got, luckily for me, I was the first one to go vegan, in my family, and I've got quite a few siblings. So I'm one of six siblings, and then there's my parents, and they've all got children as well, except for so me and my one brother, who are the two vegan brothers. We're the only ones that
Mm-hmm.
don't have children, but the rest have children. My sister's got three kids, and her husband, they went vegan after I went vegan, like kind of inspired.
Okay.
My brother who trains with me, he was also just inspired by me, so he went vegan. My parents also inspired, went vegan. But I'm
Wow.
very, very lucky that I have a bit of a split in my family where at least some of my family are vegan. I'm not the only one. There was
Wow.
a point
Okay.
where I was, but now Christmas now is like we've got one side of the family where we're happy to eat plant-based because we're vegans, but then you've got the other side that won't let go of tradition, and they will still have turkey and the
Mm-hmm.
usual, and they cannot let go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because for them that is what Christmas is, and that's that. They don't want to change. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the ethical side isn't enough to sway them.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say tradition is quite a large reason why I think the majority of the population won't change.
Yeah.
People like Christmas being the way it is, and they do not want to change it for nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's, at the cost of millions of animals going through a crap ton of suffering, which
Yeah.
I know majority of them, if you said to them, right, it's Christmas Day, if you want to have your turkey today, you need to watch this footage. This is where your turkey came from. If you're happy with all this, then you can eat your turkey. If you said that to them, they're not going to watch it and they'll be pretty pissed off at you about how
Yeah,
dare
they
you?
would.
How dare you come into the house and do that? So it's quite a weird thing as well because they also know that,
Yeah.
something's not right. And that's why they don't really want to watch it. They don't want to know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a strange thing, but I think tradition is unfortunately very powerful for
Agreed.
keeping people controlled. Um, if any of my family's listening, hopefully they're not pissed off with this, but it's the way I feel about it, and it's my thought process on it. And I think the other main reason is going to be the fact that the majority right now is not vegan, and the majority of the world are like sheep. Um,
Yeah.
Most of the people are followers, and they don't want to be different. So whilst veganism is the minority, I just feel like it's going to be a slow transition. But once we tip the scales, it's going to
Yeah.
be a landslide. I personally
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. I think that as a species, we don't want to be different, right? Like, I think it's kind of like in our nature to kind of conform a little bit and go along with what everyone else is doing. It's really hard being different. Like, it's socially isolating in a lot of ways. I think a lot of us who are vegan are very prone to feeling like maybe like alone a lot of times, or like isolated kind of and different than everybody else. It's like by nature. And the fact that we're choosing to do this is, I think, a lot of times it shows a lot of conviction in people, and it shows a lot that they're prioritizing their morals over everything else. And I think that overall, like I think it'll keep growing. I do. I think that we're in a little bit of a downturn right now in a lot of ways, but people are accepting plant-based options more, which is great. So I do think it'll keep growing. I think maybe right now isn't the best time because people are a little more selfish with the state of the world. I get it, but I would love to see more of an uptick, and I would love to see something like actually this would also be, I'd love to hear your opinion about this. I think something like maybe cell-based meat might be the next like advent for like a push for more vegan-based lifestyle. What do you think? What do you think will keep growing veganism at this point?
Yeah, kind of agree. I think that's probably one of the few ways that's going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lab grown meat is quite a big thing. I wouldn't personally eat it. I wouldn't touch stuff because I still feel like the health consequences there. But if that's the way to stop animals being exploited forevermore,
Yeah,
I agree. Do it.
yeah,
And people then get to
exactly.
follow their traditions as well, still eating the
Mm-hmm.
same things. Um, but yeah, I think in order to tip the scales, I think time is the answer. Just
Mm-hmm.
got to wait it out. There are
Mm-hmm.
there are people making the switch, and I know you said you feel like, yeah, we're on a bit of a downfall at the moment, like it's like kind of slowed down a bit, but equally, I think there's enough social media influencers out there now to do the damage, to keep pushing for veganism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's still just a game of just waiting it out. It's as
Yeah,
sad as it
yeah.
is. Like you've got people like Joey Carbstrong who
Mm-hmm.
are really going for it at the moment. I don't know if you've seen like he did like his Ignorant documentary and he's done another one as well. I can't
Oh
remember what
yeah.
it's called now. He's done like a little like follow-up documentary about what was called Hog something, Hogwashed, I think it was called.
Oh yeah.
But
Sure. Okay.
he's been going ham on it. Sorry for the pun, but he's gone like undercover to go and like put plant cameras in like these slaughterhouses and stuff, and also on free range
Wow.
farms. Because free range farms is the farms that people think are the ethical thing. They
Yeah.
think that you're gonna go to the farm and see all the animals all happy. But he put a farm in Pignorant. There's like a bit of footage where he's planted a camera, and there's a guy literally beating a
Mm-hmm.
pig, which needed to be put down because it had like all sorts of health issues. It had like I think it had like growths or something, and it couldn't use its legs,
Oof.
so it was like dragging its back feet around. And he took a
Mm-hmm.
metal rod and he's just whacking it and whacking it and whacking it and whacking it. Like that's not
Jeez.
humane. That's not humane. And that's what people think these free range farms are the better side of farming, and that it's all
Yeah.
like, sons and daisies, and it's really not. It's horrible.
Mm,
And there was dead pigs just lying around there as well. Like there were so many pigs, and they weren't being monitored properly.
yeah.
It was disgusting. So I feel like with people like Joey, they are pushing right now to make sure that time isn't the only thing, that we aren't just waiting it out. So it's going to sound bad for me to say time is the answer.
Hmm.
It's not the answer. Time, it's a weird one. So like, I just feel like you need enough time for people like Joey, and ourselves to get our messages across the world. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, however way that's going to be, if it's
Yeah.
going to be through exposure of what's going on behind the scenes with the animals, like literally, or if it's going to be a case of, plant-based athletes proving to the world that you don't need to eat animals to be the
Hmm.
best athletes. If we can get more people in the Olympics as vegan athletes, let's say you had a sprinter win the 100 meters at the Olympics, how loudly would that speak for veganism?
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing that I think is also going to push veganism a bit more quickly than currently where we're at. If you get a
Yeah.
world's strongest man, a real like world's strongest man who's vegan, obviously we've got Patrick Babumin who's a strong man, but he's not world's strongest man. You need like
Hmm.
world's strongest man or like a runner-up or something. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's
Yeah.
what we need. And then, like you said earlier, this sort of thing, unfortunately, it takes the right person with the right genetics, which is very
Hmm.
hard to find that person with the genetics and the ethical drive to do it on a vegan diet.
Yeah.
So, and like we also thought, if we had a Mr. Olympia who was vegan, it's just these are the things that I think would rocket boost veganism
Sure.
because the influence is massive.
Yeah.
But it's like a one in a million chance. Do you know what I mean? Like it's quite a hard thing
Yeah.
to do to
A-
find these
And it
people.
is it is crazy though that there are, considering that how few people are actually vegan. Like let's just assume like, I mean, what do you think? Like 1-2% tops? Like I would probably think 1% of the global population. The fact that there are actually vegans who have been and are in the Olympics, like actively competing and such, like, it's crazy. I think that speaks a ton to the effectiveness of a plant-based diet right off the bat in terms of like being able to at least contribute to performance at the same level as an omnivorous diet at the very least, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think that's the way to push it more quickly if there was a way is get the right influencers promoting veganism.
Hmm.
Also you can get celebrities do it as well, but I don't think it has the same impact as athletes
Yeah.
who actually
Well, then
win. Like,
I know. And a lot of these celebrities, they'll stop being vegan, like Lizzo, for
yeah,
example, a good recent one. And then everyone's like, "Oh, the vegan diet failed her. It's horrible for your health." And you got like Joe Rogan and stuff saying that like it's a psyop or whatever. And like, dude, we don't want we nobody wants to go vegan, like for just if they didn't actually believe that it was beneficial, right? Like we all very strongly believe the evidence that it's very obviously better for the animals, very obviously better for the environment, and it seems like we can perform just as well. We can be just as healthy. So we're convinced by that. Like we don't choose to be socially isolated and different than everybody else for no reason. That's insane.
no. And the only thing, like you said, could be questionable is the health side. If people wanted
Yeah,
to like really question it, it's like, well, the worst thing that you're gonna have to do is you might have to take a couple of supplements, but it's not that hard, is it?
just
Like
pop a
I don't
multivitamin,
like
right?
everything's fortified these days anyway.
I know. It's just crazy.
So
Like you're lifting, you're already taking a multivitamin. Like,
yeah,
dude, that excuse to me makes no sense. They're like, oh, you gotta take all these vitamins. You gotta take like vitamin K2. You gotta take B12. You gotta take iron. And it's
yeah,
like, bro, just pop one multivitamin if you're that worried. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really supplement with anything besides like creatine, and if you consider protein powder or something, like
mhm,
I just don't really worry about it. I was taking a multivitamin for a while, but right now I ran out of it and I just haven't replaced it. Like, I'm not
yeah.
too worried. I mean, vitamin B12 stores last for like years, and everything's fortified. Like you said, you buy like a plant-based milk from the store, and they fortify it
It's
with
in there
B12.
anyway.
They fortify it with D3 or whatever. Like it's, I don't know, man. That argument makes no
It's
sense.
basically made so easy for you, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
It
It's
really
like
is.
technically people are right. It's like you would normally have to supplement, but the industries that are making these vegan options are doing you a massive solid by putting these things in for you. So do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like they take that pressure away from worrying. I'm taking a multivitamin at the moment, but I'll tell you what, I've never taken one. I've done it
Uh-huh.
literally in the last 2 weeks because I'm post prep and I'm just doing
Yeah, yeah.
everything I can to make sure I recover. That's the only
Right.
reason. I guarantee you in a month I'll forget about it, just like you just said, or the day I run out, I'll probably stop because I can't be bothered. Like I
Yeah.
never felt the need to take it, and I've been vegan 8 years.
Do you
It'll be
do
9 years
blood
in
work?
March. I do. And I well actually I don't normally. I did some blood work in September just because I was in prep and I wanted to see what was
Uh-huh.
going on. Um, and I did have some issues highlighted around my kidneys.
Uh-huh.
But the thing is, it's not really a fair test because I was on a very high protein, low carb diet,
Yeah, during
which
prep. I mean,
is
yeah, of
known to
course.
stress your kidneys out. So it's been one of those. I don't want to talk too much about that side because I can't really prove anything by that. So what I need to do is
Sure.
actually get another blood test done in like a month or two when I'm
Uh-huh.
like obviously recovered after prep and then see what the damage is. If there's still an issue with my kidneys, then I need to obviously figure out what's going on. But right
Yeah.
now, even the doctors agreed it's very, very likely due to the fact that you're on a very high protein diet, or I was on a high protein diet and a low carb. Because the
But
thought
Joe,
process is that
vegans can't get protein, man. How is that possible?
exactly, who would have thought that I'm having health issues due to high protein? But yeah, so the thought process, I guess, is just that see, your body's preferred energy source is carbohydrates. And when you take that away and you're also on high protein, your body's going to start utilizing the protein to
Hmm.
basically have create energy for you to move around and continue your daily routine or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, the proteins get broken down. I don't understand the full science behind it, but your kidneys get stressed out in that process of using protein for energy. So that's the like the theory that I understand, like really dumbed down.
Hmm.
Um, so just in case anyone's wondering why it matters that you're on a low carb, high protein diet, why that would affect your kidneys, that's the thought behind it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I do need to get my bloods done again in like a month or two.
Yeah.
Hopefully hopefully it will sort itself out, but one of
I mean,
them
prep is really, really hard on your body, and it takes a while to recover, so that makes sense.
is.
From my point of view, like I try to do blood work once every year, at least. I haven't done it for a couple years now at this point, just because I just didn't have health insurance for a little bit, so I was like, well, I guess I'll just wait. I'm due for one soon though. But all my blood work and all the time of me being vegan has been great. Like nothing was ever out of range. My cholesterol was very low. Like my LDL was 44, and my HDL was like 54. And my doctor was like, dude, I've seen people on like loads of statins with cholesterol levels higher than this. He's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And he was like, this plant-based diet stuff, like that's you're obviously showing that it's great for your cholesterol levels. So, little n equals one example there about how a vegan diet, a plant-based diet, can be very good for your cholesterol levels.
Yeah, and the same with me as well, actually. Do you know what, the blood test I did? Do you know what, I don't think they actually tested my cholesterol levels because I actually told Manil after I got these done, all my bloods are all right. As I didn't actually know about the kidney thing at the time, so that everything was fine. They came back to me a week after and said, "Oh, we've had an issue with your kidneys, so we want to look into that." Um,
Hmm.
or they said your renal function, which is linked to kidneys.
Hmm.
But everything else that they did test was within range, like B12, all the usual like
Hmm.
things that
Yeah.
people think is going to be a problem being on a vegan diet, all fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, just this renal function was a little low, which I'm fairly certain is correct. It's just down to the low carb, high protein diet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to get a cholesterol blood test done because Manil said, "Oh, did they check your cholesterol?" I was like, "You know what? I've just checked all the bloods that the tests that they did. I couldn't see anything on that."
Hmm. Yeah.
So I do need to get them to do that as well because that would be interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah, my another example is my mom had heart issues in the past few years. She recently went plant based. I don't think she'd call herself vegan, but she eats like a plant based diet, and her cholesterol levels dropped like 100 points or something. Like it's insane. Like we have so many examples of people doing this, and there's still a lot of deniers about it. So I don't know.
Yeah. The only thing I think that can like vegans really do to shoot their cholesterol up is if they have a lot of oil and stuff, isn't it? I guess.
Mm. I've heard about
Which
that before.
most vegans are
Yeah.
quite conscious of their health, so most vegans won't have much oil anyway. So I don't know if there's just a coincidence there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know specifically. I know saturated fat ties in with it and such, but like I said, maybe maybe we could do a joint episode with Manil or something at some point. We can
Yeah,
get into
get him to
the
clear that up.
yeah, get into the full details of it. Yeah, that'd be fun, dude. So, what else should we touch on about veganism here? Like, I'd love to. Should we talk about like how you prepped for your bodybuilding show?
Yeah. In
I'm
all
interested in
honesty,
like, yeah. Go ahead.
it wasn't really a lot different than someone doing it on an omnivorous diet. Followed
Mm-hmm.
the exact same principles, except from the only thing you could say is that I guess you probably have to have a bit more processed food to get leaner protein sources. That's the only thing. So like as a
Mm-hmm.
vegan, you're not going to be able to rely on whole foods solely to get your protein high. You
Yeah.
know, you can't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna have beans and that'll top it up and quinoa and it's not enough. Like you can't just keep
Mm-hmm.
having like lots of broccoli and things like that. It's not enough. You do need to rely a little bit well, you're gonna have to rely on protein powders, you're gonna have to rely on meat alternatives, just because the ratios of carbs, fats to protein is much better.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have more leaner products just to shoot your protein up and be able to taper down your carbs very easily. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if you're relying on beans to get your protein up, every time you reduce your beans, your carb to get your carbs down, you know, you're also taking protein down, which is not what you want. You want to be able to
Yeah.
separate your carbs and your protein sources altogether. You know, don't get me wrong, I was still eating beans, but the beans I had in my diet, I didn't change that the whole way throughout prep. That was one of my food sources that it was like I can't take from that because that's a health thing that I need to keep in there, fiber and that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would only take away from like pasta, for example, or sweet potato. I would reduce those things down, or you know,
Yeah.
like cream of rice. I would take some of that down. But yeah, all my protein sources, I would do my best to keep them separate because you know, cream of rice, you put it with protein powder. You know what I mean? So it's like you can
Yeah. Sure.
drop your carbs there, just take cream of rice down. Um, Sweet potato, I'd have it because I had vegan curry throughout my whole prep, but my vegan curry would have like basically no oil in it, so it was a
Mm-hmm.
very lean curry.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd have there's a brand in the UK called This Isn't Chicken,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Oh
pretty
yeah.
much just protein. You know, this is very low fat, next to
Yeah.
no carbs. Tastes pretty good as well. So yeah, it's an enjoyable protein source to have in there. I enjoyed every meal I had. Everything tasted great. Like I know a lot of people say in prep you should enjoy your food because it makes you want to eat. I disagree. I think you should still enjoy your food. If you
Mm-hmm.
can't eat much, you at least want to enjoy what you eat, right? Otherwise you go
Yeah.
insane.
I
But
agree.
yeah, I just found like basically making sure you try to follow the same principles as you would on an omnivorous diet. It's going to get you the same result. So if that means just making sure your protein sources are very easy to separate from your carbs, i.e., you know, using meat alternatives and protein powders, it's not hard. You
Mm-hmm.
just need to basically make sure your diet is easily adjustable to reduce your carbs down over time, as and when you need.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time, if you don't want to touch your food, increase your energy expenditure, move more, you know,
Mm-hmm.
increase your step counts. If you want to use cardio, do cardio. And as you get more and more like depleted and in shape, basically your body fat comes lower. Just watch your training. Make sure you're not training too hard, which I'll be honest with you, I messed that up at the end. Think I was still training too hard.
Yeah.
So that's a lesson for next time anyway. So
Yeah.
I need to basically gauge next time. That was the only mistake I would say I made is I didn't really manage my fatigue, which is essentially why I ended up having to drop out because I couldn't recover.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I needed to just bring my volume down a little bit or, you know, save a few reps here and there where I would just take them because I couldn't help it. And then I
Right.
would pay for it with recovery. But I don't think that's down to the vegan diet. If anyone wants to say that, that was just down to me doing stupid training. I've
Well,
heard lots
it's
of
yeah,
coaches
it's
say,
down to low calorie intake and then just like super high intensity. I mean,
yeah, I'm being an idiot at that point. Like
it's fatiguing.
I've heard omnivorous coaches basically talking about the importance of managing fatigue and not going there
Yeah.
when you're in the depths of prep and you're you know
Yeah.
at single digits. They'll say this is the point where you don't want to be proving anything or taking PRs and stuff. You need to, if anything, just do a little bit less because you're just trying to stimulate at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with me is that when I'm in the gym, I'm just in the zone, man, and I was still getting good pumps and stuff, and the feeling of being in the gym and training, I could just get through it. Like I always could. I would always switch it on, like leg day, whatever. I didn't care. And because you're pumping up nicely, obviously that's showing you that the nutrition, even though I was in a deficit, was enough to sustain the
Mm-hmm.
pumps and stuff. It was too easy for me to take it too far, but
Mm-hmm.
that was all a mind thing. But yeah, in terms of prepping as a vegan, that's a problem that you'd have as an omnivore as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I didn't really find
exactly.
anything different. It was just making sure you structure your diet in a way that you can easily separate your carbs from your protein. And again, like I
Yeah.
say, protein powders, meat alternatives, and then make sure you're using carb sources that are pretty much just carbs. They don't come with anything else or very little protein. So things like porridge or oat, you call it oatmeal, wouldn't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Comes with a little bit of protein, doesn't it? So generally, I wouldn't touch my porridge portion throughout prep. I think I kept it at 85 grams every day for breakfast. Didn't touch it just because I knew it would fluctuate my protein just ever so slightly. I thought, you know what? I love my porridge. I'll just take away from my cream of rice because my cream of rice was just pure carbs,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
And ended up taking eventually, I took all my pasta out. So, yeah, in all honesty, it doesn't have to be that difficult. The only thing I would say, if you want to say it's different, is, and just to be safe, I do think during prep, I probably would have benefited from taking a multivitamin throughout prep. I didn't do it,
Makes
but who
sense.
knows? Maybe it would have helped a little bit of energy levels or did something.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's just to be on the safe side, just because what's the point? You're deficient in energy at that point, and
Yeah.
why would you wanna risk being deficient in like any essential like minerals and vitamins at that point? In
Yeah.
hindsight, I don't know why I didn't think about it. I just didn't. Um, I'm not a coach, so these are the things like people should understand is that I coach myself, but I'm not a coach. So
Yeah.
I did make mistakes, and I was just playing it by ear. I winged it. So yeah, I was learning as I went along, and I've learned for the future when I prep again, things to do and things not to do.
Yeah, man. That's the best way to learn, trial and error.
100%. I think that's the best way to learn it as well, because you experience sometimes. I think don't think it trumps knowledge, but experience combined with knowledge is the best. If you just have the
Yeah.
knowledge but you haven't been there, done that, I
Mm-hmm.
think when people coach people but they haven't done a competition, I just don't understand how. How can you relate to that person when they're in the depths? How can you tell them, oh yeah, just do another 10,000 steps a day. That'll keep your deficit really low. It's like
Mm-hmm.
10,000 steps, is a lot of steps. You know what I mean? Like let's
Yeah.
say that person did prescribe an extra 10,000 steps when you're already doing like 15,000. Although saying that, there's an older guy on my Instagram. I found out he was doing 25,000 steps. What an absolute animal!
So many
And
steps,
he was
dude.
inside out as well. But yeah, like that's the thing. Just
Yeah.
experience doing it again and again, whether it's on a vegan diet or not. I think you run into very similar problems. And everybody's body is different. Prepping one person isn't going to be the same. Like if someone was like, if we both had the same coach, they couldn't prep me the same way as they prep you. Like
Mm-hmm.
they'd have to understand what we eat normally. They'd have to understand our routine, our
Yeah,
job, how many
100%.
steps we normally get,
Mm-hmm.
what foods make us react to different ways, what foods can we not digest properly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Dude,
there's just always different things to consider of everybody.
people have
So
such
even if
different like total daily energy expenditures too. Like I
yeah,
one of my buddies here in New York City, he's vegan also. He's a vegan lifter. He's older than me. He's about the same height, about the same weight, but he needs to eat legitimately. I trust his tracking too. He's been lifting pretty seriously for a while. He has to eat about 4,000 calories a day to maintain his body weight now, and he's pretty fucking lean too. Me, like I
lots
maintain,
of food.
I do, yeah, that's insane. I do a lot of activity too, and I maintain roughly like 3,200 right now. He eats almost 1,000 calories more than me and maintains. Like that is nuts. And then I also know people who lift more than me. They're bigger than me, who are also vegan who eat less than me to maintain.
Yes,
So
it's
there's
so
just
weird, isn't it?
it is so weird. It just goes down to genetics and I mean individual differences. It's really crazy.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. Around 3,000, 3,200 is going to be about maintenance right now.
Yeah,
When my body fat's lower, obviously that changes. Your maintenance changes at that
exactly.
point. But yeah, to
Good
hold like a
point.
healthy weight or a weight where I'm able to progress in the gym, I think about 3,000 to 3,200 is about the same for me. But
Hmm.
you're right, like someone else's like job might push their step count to about 15,000 just from working. And then
Yeah.
let's say they got a dog, they get home and they got to walk their dog as well. And then they add to
Hmm.
that. Just
Or
like, of
maybe they
course, they
just
need
twitch
more
a
food at
lot
that
too.
point. Yeah, yeah, it's really weird, isn't it? Like, It's an interesting thing that when I was in prep, there was a guy I was following on YouTube. I think he's called Paul Rivella on YouTube,
Oh yeah, I know
and
him.
he
Yeah.
he's pretty cool. He's quite
He used
helpful
to
during
coach
prep.
Natalie Matthews. Do you know her? The fit vegan
I
chef.
don't.
Okay.
I maybe I do, but I'm not. I can't recall off the top of my head. But yeah,
She's
he
like
was
a vegan
basically saying
bodybuilder.
what you just said. It just reminded me about Twitch and stuff. He said like
Yeah.
why you need to be careful with your deficit. If you get to the point where you stop like twitching and fidgeting at any points of the day, and like you're at the point where it's like your body can't be bothered to do anything except
Anything
the things it
extra.
has to do, you're
Yeah.
not in a good spot for burning fat. That's basically what he would say. It's like
Mhm.
you want to be like at a point where you're still fidgeting and stuff, and you know you're still hitting your step count, and you're still like not trying to preserve energy all the time, like unknowingly, because it happens unknowingly. Actually, you don't even
Yeah.
realize you're doing it. Like you're kind of just sat there, and like you think. And normally I'd get up and get up and go and get that, I don't know, 10 or something over there.
Hmm.
But you know what? I'm tired. I'm just gonna reach. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like instead of actually getting up. But those are the little things throughout the day that would add up. When it
Yeah.
comes to calorie burning. So yeah, it just hit me when you said, oh, like even little things like fidgeting, and it's so true.
Yeah.
'Cause I got there at the end where I
Oh yeah.
couldn't be bothered to do
I think that
anything.
happens to everybody, right? Like everybody who's prepping for a bodybuilding show, energy levels just inevitably go down, right?
Yeah.
I experienced when I crash dieted one time. The first time I ever tried to get really really lean, I brought my calories way too low. I later found out I could get just as lean with way fewer calories, just a little longer amount of time. But I was basically eating at my basal metabolic rate, 1,800 calories a day, which for me was like nothing.
Painful.
And yeah, it was insane.
Painful.
Yeah, yeah, and I remember that was the first time I ever felt side effects from being too lean. Like I just could not. It was so hard for me to mentally get up and leave and go walk. And walking around felt like I was just dragging my body. And then, if I could ever get myself enough energy, I would love to just go to the grocery store and just look at like the cereal aisle. It was the weirdest thing. I would just like look at food. It was the weirdest I ever felt about food in my whole life. And then like like my libido wasn't as good. It wasn't gone, but it wasn't as good. And you just feel different. You just don't feel like yourself. It's really bizarre, right?
Yeah. And you can snap as well, like things that would never piss
Yeah,
you off. Like it's gonna sound horrible, and I hate to admit it, but my pets were pissing me off, and they are the things that I love with all my heart. But
yeah,
you put me in the depths of prep, the little things that they do to like, which you might normally find cute, like the dog's like batting you, and you're like, oh, that's cute. But when he's batting you, like when you're in the depths of prep, you're like, get off. Like I
yeah.
would get like that. Like, and I don't like that. That's the side of prep I absolutely detest.
Uh-huh.
But unfortunately, I don't think you can get in shape without getting like that. Don't care what anyone says. I think
Yeah,
if you want to get shredded, I think you are going to get you're going to get irritable, and that's one
yep.
thing that you just have to accept, and you need to be prepared for, and you need to be able to learn to control it. I'm not very good at it. I'll be the first to put my hand up and say, I need to get better at that. And my missus she'll say it too. She'll be like, bloody
Mhm.
hell, Joe. Like every time I say I want to prep, she's like, oh God,
Yeah.
Grumpy Joe. She called me
That's
Ratty Joe,
that's
is what
so
she was
funny.
calling me.
Yeah, everybody who does bodybuilding or has ever gotten very lean, well, I've heard them say many times that it's like uh, it's a selfish activity or sport, whatever you want to call it, because, yeah, like you do usually get a little grumpy at the end, right? And the people around you are gonna feel that, and you have to put a lot of time and effort into yourself. And I think it has a toll on a lot of people around you. So I hear a lot of competitors say that.
Yeah, and that's why every time I prep, I get permission from my girlfriend. I say, "Do you
Yeah.
mind if I prep at this year or at this time? Like, is it okay?" Because they
Yeah.
have to be on board. I don't care what anyone says. People say, "Oh, that's not up to them," or "You should follow your dreams." It's like, well, if you value that person in your life, you do need to get
Yeah.
their permission, and you do need to give a shit about what they think at that point. Like, that's not
That's
fair.
very fair.
It's not
Yeah.
fair to just make them come along for the ride, and then if they don't support them, then fuck them. Like that's not the right attitude. Like that's not right
Yeah.
at all. And also that person, like I'm talking mostly with your partner, whether boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, they need to be on board because when you're also at that point where you are like, well, I was Ratty Joe. I thought we called it by the way. It was like our little joke for it, like our Ratty Joe's back when I was really grumpy and struggling. When
Hmm.
you're at that point, you need that person to kind of keep you in check as well, because sometimes they're
Yeah.
the thing that will keep you going.
Hmm.
But if they're not on board before you went on prep, like you can't rely on them because they did tell you, not this time, or maybe next year. I think you should listen at that point.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, to a degree. I mean, if they never let you do it and it's a passion and they're like, no, you're never doing it, then you probably got a different issue and you need to discuss that with your partner. But
That's a good point.
like, it's like I've got qualification this year, for next year for the Worlds IMBA,
Hmm.
which is in June. Um, I don't know if I'm going to do it yet or not, to be honest. It's one of those things. If I was to do it, I'd need to start prepping end of January, maybe
Hmm.
mid-Jan, Feb, whatever. But
And you're still recovering.
first things first, I'm recovering, yeah. But so it's two things it depends on whether I go for it. It depends on after Christmas, if I feel like, libido is exactly where it needs to be, that's kind of where I'm going to go. And also, like I said earlier, I've had an issue with my kidneys. Get my bloods done. If my kidneys are, back to being like reasonably normal, right, we'll go again. But only if my partner's on board.
Yeah.
If she says, please don't do it, I say, no, I can't do it. It's not fair. I've literally just come out of a prep. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a weird one because obviously I've qualified for a world event here where a lot of people still need to do qualification shows to get
Hmm.
into that.
Hmm.
So I'm in two minds. I don't want to waste the opportunity, but at the same time, it needs to be under the right circumstances. Um, Perhaps not a joke, to be honest. It's like you say, when you get to those points where you're so depleted, your energy levels reflect on the people around you, through your grumpiness most of the time, and also
Yeah.
your laziness as well. Like if you're really lethargic, you're probably not going to be so helpful around the house. Do you know what I mean? Like
Good
little
point.
things your partner needs you to help with,
Yeah.
you're not going to be as productive doing stuff like you normally would.
Yeah.
So it's an
Yeah,
interesting
man.
one.
That's a very good point. All right, Joe. So we've been going on for about a little over an hour now about veganism and your prep and everything. So I think we touched on a lot of really great stuff here. For the sake of time, let's wrap it up here and close out with where can people find you and connect with you. And if you want to shout out any personal projects or anything, this would be a great time.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. My Instagram is Joe Vijay _fit 2015. Um, I've also got a joint Instagram and a joint YouTube channel with my brother, which is Vegan Jactivist. Jactivist is just about activist with a J at the beginning. Um, and on that as well, so my YouTube, I haven't uploaded it yet, but I just finished editing my first bodybuilding competition from this year where I took a win. It's not on YouTube yet, but I am going to be uploading it in the very near future, probably likely this week. So
Hmm.
yeah, if you're interested, just it'd really help if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's very small. But yeah, and in the next few weeks I'll be uploading vlog footage from all the shows I did. Just so people can see what it's like to compete as a natural
Hmm.
vegan. Some of the things that you have to go through as a competitor to look a certain way for about 10 to 15 minutes on the stage, sometimes
Yeah.
longer, depended which federation you competed with. It's just interesting to see what people go through. So I know people who have not competed before perhaps might want to see what I did, especially as a
Hmm.
vegan. Was there anything different that I had to do? So yeah, if you're interested in that, please check out our YouTube. I'd say that's the most important thing that I'm working on at the moment. And if you just if you're interested in me as just a person, what I do daily life, Instagram's the best place to go. I do often upload random gym footage to my Instagram stories, just as and when. So yeah,
Awesome, dude. I'll link your YouTube in the description, and I'm sure that by the time I post this episode, your vlog for your bodybuilding show will be up. So go check that out. I'll link it in the description. Joe, thanks so much, dude. Always a pleasure. I'm glad to have you on a second time now. I feel like time flies chatting with you, man. I feel like we could just go on and on about lifting and bodybuilding and strength training and veganism and all that stuff. So thanks so much, dude. I really hope to have you on again in the future. And just stay on for a second after the call again, if you don't mind. I'd love to give you a proper thank you. But for anyone listening so far, thanks so much for listening. And thanks again, Joe.
cool, no problem.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ethics Approach podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate if you gave the podcast a follow anywhere where you're listening to this and dropping a review if you liked it. Please also feel free to check out the Ethics Approach website for additional content, including coaching services, free training programs, articles, and merch, as well as the Aethix Fitness YouTube. Feel free to also check out my personal fitness Instagram, which can be found at Tofu Strong, for updates and even more content. And of course, dropping a like, commenting, and sharing is always hugely appreciated and is a quick, easy, and free way to help me producing more content like this. Thank you so much again to my Aethix Fitness community. Much love, as always, and I'll see you again in the next episode soon. Peace out.